Hi, I'm Elliot from the Cameron Group. I want to talk to you today about a new field. It's environmental engineering, but not just in the local area, not just specific sites, but actually about engineering the environment of the entire planet. This is a new concept. Not everybody believes in it, but enough believe in it that you can actually get a PhD degree in this topic. And we can actually aspire to do this. Some people believe that all we can do is wait for our great great grandchildren to expire as they burn up from global warming. Other people believe that we can take control of this, that we will be able to explore outer space together, make Star Trek come to life, if you will, and we will overcome this. I'm in the latter school. I'm an optimist. We are not going to be defeated by the environment. We're going to establish a partnership and we're going to have a bright future. Okay, let me move on to the presentation. Oh, I want to see bigger than that. Come on, presentation. There we go. So global climate engineering by accident and on purpose. We've already proven that we can change the environment in a bad way by accident. So why can't we change it in a positive way, in a smart way on purpose? Huh. Well, let's find out. I would say that climate-wise, the world is dynamic. It's not static. First of all, I'm not interested in promoting conspiracy theories. I'm not interested in proclaiming that the work of climatologists and the baseline belief in global warming per se is sacrosanct and not subject to modification as we learn more. In my view, the world is a combination of natural and human influences, and carbon dioxide is not the only thing that we need to worry about. It's one of the most important things, but there are a number of forces at work, and we need to understand how all of this fits together. So, my main point, I think, is if human activity is powerful enough to influence the world in a bad way, then if we do something smart, we ought to be able to change the climate in a positive way. How do we do it? There are now uh, universities that offer PhD degrees in climate engineering. Startups are gearing to do the job. Impossible is never the right answer. Um, I presented a paper. This is over 20 years ago. I'm an old guy, man. But I presented a paper at the Second International Conference on Global Warming and the Next Ice Age. This was at Los Alamos in 2002. Maybe it was Albuquerque. It was in New Mexico anyway, which suggested that fertilizer runoff was causing algae to proliferate, and it was, and I'm specifically in the Gulf of Mexico, as we called it then. Now it's the Gulf of America. And this was going to create additional absorption of sunlight near the surface of the ocean. And it would be actually a change of the surface temperature of the Gulf of Americas. Um, and this was a concern. And it's also going to affect the ability of sunlight to reach the coral reefs. And I think it's underappreciated in its effects. But anyway, seaweed has been a problem. Recently, sargassum seaweed has been piling up on the beaches along the Atlantic Ocean. This was created because all of that runoff, the fertilizer from the largest economy, the agricultural economy of America, is pouring down out of the Mississippi River into the Gulf, and it slowly drifts over to the Atlantic, feeds that seaweed, and it very slowly, over a period of decades, has wandered to the west and finally found the Atlantic coast. And now it looks like it's going to be with us for every year. So the U.S. produces over 20 million metric tons of fertilizer every year, and 1.6 million tons of nitrogen winds up in the Gulf. That's a lot, man. So the other side of the coin is that maybe what we ought to be doing is converting seaweed into sequestered carbon. There are some companies that are trying to grow seaweed on purpose and then densify it, then send it to the bottom of the ocean and collect carbon credits for it. That's their business plan. They're getting investment dollars. I know that for sure. Whether or not this is a practical way to make money, I don't know. But it is something that people are exploring, working on. I think it's a cool idea. Um, Let me talk about another economic disaster that the country has experienced but managed to survive somehow, and that's the American buffalo. There used to be 30 to 60 million buffalo, according to the National Park Service. And then Americans decided, well, why don't we shoot them all? That would take away the food for the Native Americans. We don't like them anyway. And also, by the way, those were natural resources that they used to make housing and clothing and all sorts of things that they used buffalo hides for, and bones as building materials and whatnot. And by 1884, there were only about 350 left. It was incredible how bad it was. This was I would call that a first order environmental disaster. But then, somebody in the federal government called a halt to the slaughter just in time, and now the herds are getting built up again. But just after the buffalo herds were almost wiped out, we started to have these enormous dust storms where there were like a mile high cloud of dust would cover entire towns, engulf them in dust. And a lot of people thought that perhaps the buffalo were key to stabilizing the soil. And maybe that was a part of the problem of creating dust storms. I don't know whether it was or not. But what if dust storms were around today like this? What would people say about it? It was a terrible time right around the Depression. Huh. But let's talk about counterpoint. Is there a reason to be optimistic about growing things? And I would say, you know what? Artificial growth of biomass is something else again. If you look at the growth of, this is just one crop. I chose corn, which has grown just about every year since the Great Depression ended in 1935-ish. And it's just taken off and grown every year up to the present time. And so it looks like American farmers are able to grow and improve their methods every year. And if that's true, maybe they would have some way to produce more and more biomass. And it might be practical to do things 50 years from now that are considered impractical now, and that sequestering biomass carbon may not be such a crazy idea after all. I don't know. But it is amazing what the farmers have done. By the way, I'll mention my wife is from Malaysia. One of the things that amazed her when she came to America was seeing American cornfields in Ohio. She said, wow, now I know I'm really in America. She had never seen anything like an American cornfield back in Malaysia. It's really, maybe we don't appreciate what we actually have here in America. Acid rain. We don't hear about acid rain so much, but it used to be that acid rain was destroying forests. It was also really bad in the cities. It was dissolving uh, stone statues and buildings. And then the EPA was created by who? It was signed into law, believe it or not, by President Richard Nixon. And I'm kind of amazed. Even my own kids, I asked, do you think it was cleaner air 50 years ago, or do you think that it's cleaner today? And they say, well, I think it was probably cleaner back then. And I assure you, as a native Clevelander, it was dirty back then. The EPA, you may not have liked it. Industries whined and whined how it was going to destroy industries and we weren't going to have any jobs anymore. The crying was just pitiful. But the fact of the matter is that it worked. The air is much, much cleaner in virtually all American cities. But people are told that it's getting dirtier and dirtier somehow. Young people, just, ask your teenagers at home, what do you think? Is it cleaner or dirtier now than it was 50 years ago? Ask Grandpa what he thinks. Or grandma what she thinks. Sorry, no, ladies, I didn't mean to leave you out of the equation. It's it's crazy. Well, we have this pessimistic attitude that's taught to us somehow, but I assure you, the environment is getting cleaner with time, not dirtier. Let's talk also about one of my favorite topics is the whale cycle. The whales were way overhunted in the 1700s and 1800s, almost to the point of extinction for many species. And the population still has not recovered to this day. And there's a special cycle that goes kind of like this, where sunlight helps phytoplankton to proliferate. Krill eat the phytoplankton, then fish eat the krill, and whales eat the fish. The whales, by the way, also eat the phytoplankton, so it's a little more complicated. But anyway, the whales poop, and that fertilizes the phytoplankton and also sequesters carbon. So there's all this stuff going on. The whales get bigger, and the carbon winds up falling to the bottom of the ocean and stays there for hundreds of years, if not longer. And so all of this acts like a pump where carbon starts out in the atmosphere and winds up at the bottom of the ocean for hundreds of years. It's a sequestration pump. It also makes makes meat for the whale and also oil. Before we had petroleum oil, we used whale oil for lamps and for burning things. And if we can get around the discomfort with slaughtering whales, it's kind of an amazing thing. So I write here, what if God had an audience with Shark Tank? And God says that, hey, I've got a system that breathes in CO2 and it can make meat, it can make oil, and it can sequester CO2 all at the same time. And what do you suppose the reaction would be? Well, they would probably laugh in God's face. But the amazing thing is that whales actually do this. They need the krill, they need the phytoplankton, but this actually happens naturally. So, what if you imagine a machine that can actually do the same thing? What if it was the size of an aircraft carrier, which is 600% of the size of a blue whale? What if we had 1,000 of these aircraft carrier sized machines in the far future? This is not impossible. The whale cycle is a very, very powerful method that could remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It's simply photosynthesis on a massive scale. It could be done. It could be controlled. It could be multiplied. I don't know what the limits are. Maybe somebody can figure that out and send me an email and tell me how big it could be. But I think it could be virtually unlimited because it happens in the ocean. The ocean is 75% of the Earth's surface. we haven't begun to tap the potential of the ocean, and it is a amazing potential carbon sink. So, all right, there's an old joke about the optimist who was put in a room that was filled with horse manure. And Optimus was so happy. He said, "Well, with all this horse manure, there's bound to be a pony here someplace. So where's the pony in all of this?" I would say this, that the best ideas haven't been thought of yet. Surely, little Elliot is not the smartest person in the universe. There's lots and lots and lots of inventors, geniuses far beyond my capabilities. The best ideas have not been thought of yet. I've just presented a few, you know, just one of a million, or well, actually, I presented about 4 or 5 ideas, but just a few examples that may or may not really contribute to solving the problem. But there are others that are even better, way better. So there is no reason to think that you can't solve these environmental problems, that these climate problems are unsolvable. That's ridiculous. So my personal opinion is that global warming will be solved this century. So now we can't let humans just do whatever they want. There's going to have to be some parameters around us, make sure that we don't misbehave. Similarly, there's going to be some parameters around how we interact with nature. We're going to have very good climate models, and we're going to have the ability to predict that, well, if we do take this action, we're very, very sure that this is going to be the result. It's going to be a positive result, and we're not going to goof this up. And I think that's going to be a very difficult system to manage, but I think it will ultimately get done. Okay, that's really what I had to say. I hope you enjoyed it. Uh, Send me a line, and we'll talk again in about a week or so. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time.